Ready. Awesome. All right. Well, hi. Thank you for joining the Center for Justice and the Law Spotlight Conversation series, where we talk about topics on health, justice, and law with guests. I'm Gabby, and I'm here with my classmate Yvonne, and we are students at Hamline University taking the course Health, Justice, and Law this semester. Our conversation today will be with Hamline alum and former prison doula, Kiki Beswick. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Kiki. We've asked you to join us today because of your work, your experiences, and your advocacy as a doula. You inspire us for the work you've done and striving to assist these women and mothers. I wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself and speak a little about what you've done and are currently doing since you attended Hamline. Can you tell us about the work you're doing for your community now?
Yes, so I am not in Minnesota anymore. I'm in California now, but I
Yeah.
still do birth work. I like to stay connected with the Prison Doula Project because a lot of the work I do is I still work with moms and babies and connecting them with the resources that they might need, everything that would make a family feel more confident starting off, or even parents who are already parenting, what they need to feel comfortable raising a newborn and feeling autonomous. While I worked with the Prison Doula Project, I did a lot of fun things. I started off as their intern, so I was working with them, doing, I guess, like workshops and stuff, hands-on things inside the prison, like health fairs, or actually being able to go inside and talk with the residents, the ladies, conversationally, and not have, I guess, the burden or whatever, the overseeing eye of a guard or somebody. I'm not, I don't work for the DOC, so there's no strings attached, I guess, with them, so they don't feel obligated to not talk with me, I guess, ever, if that makes sense, which makes it better for me to, get them what they need, support them, and then also I learned from them as well. I'm really lucky that I was able and would do it again, but was able to go in their space. Prisons and jails they're not pretty, they're not comfortable, they're not meant to take visitors, really. I mean, there's visiting spots, but they're not places where you're meant to kind of bond and think of yourself outside of prison. The whole re-entry aspect is really important, I think, because in my experience, a lot of the re-entry happens when you're already out of prison, and then it's kind of like this game of catch up, and then it's like a cycle of how do I get where I want to get with the tools that I have. So I just try to meet ladies where they're at, whatever I'm doing, especially as female identifying people are often head of household, the matriarchs, and they're really transformative in how the children grow up. And so then you look at the whole family, and supporting the mom can be supporting the family as well. So I hope that kind of gives a little background on I guess I don't have a specific area of work. I more so have like this feeling that I want to share. Like I want everybody to feel like they have equal access to the stuff they would have anyway, had they not had the label of, poverty or incarcerated and things like that.
Definitely. I think that's a great point. And it kind of connects to our next question for you. As I mentioned a little bit, like we are part of Susie's Health, Justice, and Law class, and our theme this year is health, justice, and the law. So how does the work that you do or have done connect to this theme of health, justice, and law?
Sure. So that's a really good question. I think they're all intersectional. Health, justice, and the law. I mean, justice and the law seem like they go hand in hand, but they don't. The law is written and justice is like the action, and the action does not always meet what the written thing, what the guidelines say of what the just action should be. So I think health is something that is really interesting to put with the idea of justice, because justice, I guess, is always case by case. You know, some people have different experiences with what they think justice is, especially in terms of the law. But health, the justice you receive changes based on your, like I kind of said, like your intersections and whatever. And so a lot of, you don't get just access to health. You don't get what not a lot of people don't get what they need because somehow the justice of law is wrapped up in what their identity is, if that makes sense. So I guess an example would be like my experience with moms who are incarcerated. They're like, oh, well, I'll just take, what I can get because it's been hard for me to get prenatal care moving from jail to prison or whatever their case is. And it's like, just because you're in jail doesn't mean you have to settle. Or just doesn't mean, because it's harder to come by that you shouldn't still feel like you're totally, it's totally something you should be able to get, like you're entitled to. So I think that justice and the law are not the same. And justice is, for me, a sense of entitlement. It's people receive justice, it's not like it's something they can go get. So if people are distributing justice, obviously through the law, and health and the law do not meet. It's just not a clear segue of, oh, you need equal health access. Well, that's a just thing you should deserve. Let me give it to you. It's more like, how many hoops can you jump through to get that? So I think what I try to do is, no matter what I do, if it's a prison doula or if it's like a family advocate, I just try to, which are very wrapped into one another. I just try to always think, like, just because your circumstances might cause somebody to label you as something doesn't mean you don't deserve the same access that you would before if you didn't have that label. And I bring up autonomy again because a lot of people lose their sense of self going through the systems, whether it be like prison system or the some kind of like social service, if you need help with food, housing, whatever. Sometimes people just don't know which direction to go because I think a lot of it is resource connecting, and I'm going to connect you to this person. If this person can't help you, they'll direct you somewhere else. It's never a straight streamline. So I think every time if I'm working in a position where I can be part of the streamline, I guess, how can I make it easier for them to get what they need, and not make it seem like such a big task. So because a lot of times people are like, it's just so much for me to do and I don't have the ability to make those things happen, so I'm just not going to handle it, and then that could be a issue in the long run. So that's what I think.
Definitely.
Wow. How did your time in Hamline influence your career path?
Love it.
Or did it?
It did. So I was actually a transfer student. I came from a school in southern Minnesota. I did 2 years there. Still doing like women's studies, LGBTQIA studies, I think is what they called it there. But pretty much queer studies, however you want to call it. I've always wanted just to study people or like society, what really deems a person accessible to things. And I took a gender politics class, and I wrote a paper on women in prison. And I was like, oh my God, this doesn't make so much sense, but it makes so much, like, I'm really connected to it in some way. And so I just kept thinking about the ways women being in prison affect our whole society. not only are they like, you know, our friends and sisters, but they're like our moms and grandmas in there. Like when I don't know, you know, if the class Inside Out, the Inside Out class, I think you know what I'm talking about with that. The class.
Yeah. Did you take it with Colleen
I did
or
take it
another
with
professor?
Colleen. And so it was, yeah, I think that was like December of 2018. And it was just nice to go inside the facility and be half students, half residents of the facility, and then be able to still both get Hamline credits at the end of the day, or just be able to work together to make a project or, you know, group. The only group project I liked was in prison, you know, in the in the facility, but it was just nice to collaborate with these ladies and remember that they are us. You know, I'm like, feel like I'm hanging out with my girlfriends or like one of my friends or sisters. I mean, you know, a cousin or something is very like, more so like this, not this feeling of you did something wrong, but it's like, what didn't you get along the way maybe, or what was somebody else given what opportunity, whatever. And that was even a question that came up, was like one gal asked, like, what, we are all so similar, but what is it that changed my trajectory that I'm incarcerated and you're not? And that was something that came up a lot. And nobody could really, you know, it's many things. It's not just one thing, but I guess just made me think more about, you know, people in prison in general and how it makes you feel and how beyond how it affects your life. And then, so anyway, I took that with Colleen, that was with Hamline. And then I was looking for an internship hardcore. And I was like, whatever, I'll find one. And Colleen was like, and with the prison doula project, do you know what a doula is? I was like, no, but I would love to work with ladies in prison. And she was like, great, I'll connect you with Ray and we'll go from there. And I was like, cool. I talked to Ray and then it was like legendary. I don't know, it was just like for me to find an organization that does work that I would be interested in, meaning I didn't want to just go to school to, I shouldn't say just go to school. I didn't want to go to school to do one thing or one thing that made a lot of sense in terms of like, and this is no shade to anybody, this is just the way I operate, but like, I didn't want to go to be a social worker. I wanted to be like a community health worker because that's just, my attention span doesn't stay in one spot anyway, but also like I have a lot of different interests and I can bounce around a lot, I guess. So it's nice to be able to, I guess, bounce around in that aspect of I can work in the prisons and then I can take what I learned in the prison and apply it to ladies who are not incarcerated or maybe have experienced it. Because really it's a lot of the same, like just because you're in prison or jail, like take you out of prison or jail, a lot of these ladies have the same similar issues.
Correct. So you're telling us you went to school to learn how to become a better advocate.
Exactly. And so going to Hamline, I kind of bounced around in what that meant. And then I just kind of settled with prisons for, you know, the time being. Now I'm not necessarily working with ladies who are incarcerated, but I would, and they have similar circumstances. And Hamline just kind of boosted my prison and justice side of my brain, I guess. It made it super possible for me to go and do that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Well, the next thing we wanted to ask you about is how your work connects to our spring theme, which is reproductive justice. So if you wanted to speak a little bit about that, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Reproductive justice, I think, is very fun topic. I think it's broader than people realize. And I think that people think of reproductive health as like birth control or like abortion, which is a part of it, but they don't a lot of these terms that they are thinking about are really like a very, how do you say, like I can't think of the term, but they're very like end game like ideas. Like they're like, oh,
limited, yeah.
We don't think of reproductive health as like family planning. We think of it as abortion. You know what I mean? It's not so
close-minded.
Yeah, very close-minded. Not so like, oh, we can plan a family if I do birth control. It's like, if you do that, then you're preventing natural causes or whatever. There's a million scenarios you can add to that, but I just try to work with our bodies, I guess is the best way I can say it. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person. I did the doula thing and still, try to learn as much as I can about reproductive health and stay up on it. But things are always changing and opinions are always changing. So I just try to, say, if this is what you want, if this is something that you want to do for your reproductive health, totally, let me get you a few different resources on it so you can kind of create your own vision of it in your head and go from there. I'm not going to tell you yes or no on anything because it's a rough time to be so, I feel like you can be unbiased and still use your discretion in most scenarios, especially with reproductive health. There's so many options, but I just think that people don't, when they hear the term reproductive health, they might get defensive or something, and then it kind of turns into like the black and white conversation. And so I just always, at the topic of options and like just reminding people that they have options. Reproductive health, depending on what the clinic you go to, you might feel obligated to do one thing or go to the clinic with one thing in mind and they kind of talk you out of it, is an experience that people have and might assume that will continue to happen. So you just got to say, be open-minded, look at a few different resources, or I'll look with you. We can figure it out together. But I think I try to just change the idea of what reproductive health means in terms of like, of it as like an umbrella term, and then also what it means for you, because everybody has different perceptions about it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
And some of that may come from the historical women being sterilized and being very suspect of certain responses they get at particular clinics and everything. Definitely. One of the things we wanted to ask of you is, what can we do as Hamline students to support the work that you are currently doing?
Well, I feel like Hamline is really, tries to stay up and up on it, and you two are very wise ladies. I feel like, well, I guess I would say I can't ask you to do anything that I shouldn't be asking myself to do. And I think I would just ask, what am I doing that can benefit somebody else in like the same token? Like, how can I, for lack of a better phrase, like two birds, one stone? I'm like, happy to connect families to resources. And if it's also my day job, then that's a treat. Like, I think, how can you do activism or justice in a way that make that you can do it day to day, but it's not, it can be exhausting to do activism and feel like you have to be, on at all times, in turn, like on, meaning like you always have to be ready to maybe deflect or, have a opposing conversation. But I think if you can just do small acts of justice, or however you want to call it, in your day-to-day life, I think that also does a lot. And that's something I try to do.
That's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Our last thing that we wanted to ask you, which I guess kind of is an extension of that last question, is what your call to action for our audience might be, like what to do in light of this and in light of all of your unique experiences.
Oh, okay. Ooh, I guess I did say that last thing. Well, I would just always say, like, I guess like the easiest, chillest term, I don't know, see for yourself is the word, just is what is coming to me. Like, you know, biases are like a big part of work of justice, and even biases we have that are maybe like, you know, more people would agree with you, so you don't feel like it's a bias. I'm not going to give any examples because we're going to stay, you know, but I guess I'm saying, how can you just learn more about things yourself and find out things for yourself, make your own understanding of things so you can see how you fit into the equation to make the change, if that makes sense. Like, you know, picture yourself.
Yeah.
And what your intersections are. How are you going to be helpful and not imposing, but also don't over self-check yourself where you're like just posting on social media just to post so you can feel better about it. If you're doing stuff day to day, you know, maybe you won't feel the need. And I know there's a lot. That's why I'm opening a can of worms there, but you know, just little stuff day to day actually makes a big difference in the long run. Even if it's like donating to like a couple bucks to your local, to the Doula project or something like that, you know, to places that you know will get allocated if you don't know what to do on your own. Talk with other people, things like that. But yeah.
Awesome.
Great. Kiki, thank you very much for your time. And
yes,
regarding time, we were getting close to our close up. So we like to say for people to be sure that they follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Our next spotlight will be next Thursday, March 18th, with Manali. I don't want to destroy her last name, but I believe it's Bukata, a Reproductive Justice Fellow for the National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum. She's a graduate of Gustavus, and that time frame again will be 11:30 to 12. Check us out also on April 30th for the webinar on reproductive injustice, birth behind bars. Gabby, Kiki,
great.
It was great spending time with you.
Yes,
thank you. I look forward to connecting.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you again. I think Yvonne said it, but thanks so much for talking with us and sharing your wealth of knowledge.